it's only appropriate that we try to take it from the top, right? Which is this first era where we want to touch on, and from what I understand, we're going to probably be giving it to the baby boomers to just enlighten us on how things kicked off and to help us understand where we started. So from the first era of New Covenant, from 1920 to 1979, where Alan H. Hester was the pastor.
I wanted to jump in and tell you a little bit about New Covenant. I've been there since 1964. I actually joined in August of 1964 when New Covenant shared revival with Reverend Sanders on 8th Avenue. Mm-hmm. And I joined that Sunday at the revival. And I will never forget, Reverend Sanders said, "Well, baby, what church are you joining?" And I said, "New Covenant," and pointed at Reverend Hester. And everybody started laughing. That was my first real experience coming through the doors of New Covenant, you know, as a member.
Uncle Raymond, what year did you join the church?
If memory serves me correctly, and I could be wrong, but it was somewhere in the middle to late 70s. And I do remember Reverend Hester. He was tall and slender, brown-skinned brother. And he had a commanding appearance about him.
Reverend Hester, he was about 6'2", 6'3". And he was very much, back in that era, how people ran churches. It was more autocratic in terms of how the style, the leadership was. But he did so much in terms of putting this church on a sound footing, building, being the contractor, and doing all the things that were necessary to lay a foundation that we could come in later and build up on. Now, I served him, I came in 74, and I served with him for 6 years when he became ill. That was in, he got ill a few years later. And I served with him for 6 years during that era. It was a difficult era. We had a lot of turbulence, a lot of activities going on, and he did a lot of stuff for the church. The daycare center, he had a credit union. He had the first church newspaper called The Lamplighter. He did a lot of work for the church. We had some great times. We had some difficult times, but nonetheless, it was a very stimulating era of the Hester era. It was stimulating, yes. It was turbulent, yes. And also there was many progressive things that the church accomplished and did. And so it's because of Hester and those early organizers that enabled us to do what we have done thus far. It's their sweat, it's their labor, it's their blood, their tears that led the foundation that we came in. And so we will never try to take credit for anything what these brothers and sisters did back in the day. They did what they had to do, what they had to work with. You know, they didn't have all of the sophistication that we have today and all of the information that we have. They took what they had and they utilized it to the best of their abilities to build and lay a foundation. And for that, I am extremely grateful for those people who put in the time, to put in the work to get things done.
This is definitely something very, very imperative to listen to as we understand where we are now, just knowing where we've been and where we've come from. And so I'm interested in the choir.
Oh,
the systems of the choir as every era progressed. So I'm going to ask questions about that as we move.
Well, the choir back in the day, we had a senior choir and we had the junior choir. We had some, excuse me, some interesting uniforms. The choir started out when Reverend Hester wanted to get into a robe. That was hilarious. So the robe was it was sort of a light blue with pink, and it has nothing to do with the church colors. We got these burgundy seats, these theater seats, and we got these light blue robes with pink trim. But man, but you couldn't tell them anything back then, man.
That just sounds so great to listen to, because I know, like, one of the first, the choir is what I remember. Like, that was kind of like my first stage a little bit, right? Like, I knew when I was like going to choir rehearsal, and just like singing on Sundays, or whether it was the concerts. I only imagine like the ancestors from the choir probably used to pull up and help us out a little bit, because, you know, every now and then we definitely needed that help, especially the tenor section if I was up there.
My one experience, not just speaking about the choir, but I loved to see the mother's board. It was something about those Christian older women, the mother's board, Mother Pearl Caraway, Mother Watson, Mother Martha Holliday, Mother Nellie Cantrell, Mother Gladys Akery. Oh, the list goes on and on. Mother Ophelia Sanders, Mother Walker, those women.
Gregory.
Mother Gregory, when the church would be in kind of a financial bind, Reverend Hester could stand over the pulpit and tell those women what he needed. And by the end of service or the end of the morning worship, he had what the church needed. Now, a little bit of choir history. The choir always had a table.
Oh, yeah.
And I have the tea dishes from 1965 engraved from the choir. I still have them. My mother made sure that I knew they stayed in her china cabinet. And I still have her original china cabinet with those dishes.
There. Go back one now. Your daddy is the one who took the baptismal pool from upstairs to downstairs. It was never downstairs. It moved downstairs because we wanted to change up because I wanted because we got the baby choir. We wanted to put somebody in the center. So we had the two sides, and then we had chairs in the center for the kids. So your daddy, because we were saying, how are we going to get this thing out of here? Your daddy, I'll never forget that. He said, all right, you brothers, y'all come over one Saturday. I said, Brother White, how you going? He said, watch me. And you know your daddy. Yeah. I saw this man. I'm to this day, I still don't understand how this man engineered removing this monstrosity thing. And you see, and we had the back door. You know, for those who don't know where the organ is, where the women's baptismal sign, those were the steps that went down to the basement, and up there it went straight out the back door. So we got to go out the back door, and you got these steps up there, and we got these steps. We got to move around, and your dad found a way to get this baptismal pool from upstairs to downstairs, and that's where we baptized. In fact, I baptized Aaron's father downstairs, Brother Evans, downstairs in the baptismal pool. It would move from upstairs to downstairs. It was never downstairs, back upstairs. Your daddy moved it from upstairs to downstairs because it was built into the floor. And that's why I didn't think it could be moved. It was made out of tin. It was tin.
It was made out of tin metal. Yes, it was.
It was tin. It was galvanized tin.
Yeah.
All right. And your dad, because we got to figure out, okay, now how do we go into? We got to take it apart. We can't take it apart. You know, we ain't got no money to buy no baptismal pool. He said, watch me. Coley White got a crowbar and got this thing out the floor and told those brothers how to get out the door. To this day, my mind is still blown. I still don't understand how this man engineered removing that baptismal pool from upstairs. And then we got to bring it through that skinny door in the back of the church downstairs.
I remember those stairs looked like it was about 15 stairs straight down. Straight down.
Sister Barham, I know that your folks and your family planted powerful seeds around that area as well. So before we move on, if you wouldn't mind unpacking just a little bit, if you can, we think that we'll be grateful for you.
Tell us about Mother Gladys Akery.
Well, you know, Grandma used to stand up every Sunday doing testimony time.
Yes.
And she would say, I can't hear, but I love the Lord. But I don't remember a lot as a young girl. You remember they used to give you your offering in a handkerchief and tied it at the very corner. and I was taking my money out and wasn't paying attention, and Reverend Hester actually came down doing the hoop. I don't know about the hoop until now, as I reflect back in retrospect. And Reverend Hester was leaning back and going forward, and he, spit out of his mouth. And I took my handkerchief and held it all up, and Grandma pinched me so hard. And she said, "You better not cry." And I sit there, and I was trying to get that money out of my handkerchief, and that's what I remember about Reverend Hester.
When I came, Sister Kathy Caraway was in my Sunday school class. That was my church school class.
Okay.
She, Bonnie Gibson, her brother, her brother, and then Jody and her brother, and Raymond Johnson was in my class. I'm trying to think of a few more.
Warren and Rocher and Sandwich.
Yeah, that's right, in my class. Yeah, so that's the class that I inherited when I came. They were the teenagers, boy. You couldn't tell them a thing back then. They were just incredible. They were just, oh man.
Talk to us about that, Sister Caraway.
Well, I was Doc's babysitter when he first came to New Covenant at that young, tender age. And actually, William came back from the military, came back from the Navy, and we started to hang out and date. And so some of our fondest times was us going over to McQuarrie's house, even during those dating days. But then Reverend Hester actually married us in 1978. And so it was actually the changing of the guard. We were married by Reverend Hester, but actually Sister McQuarrie and Reverend McQuarrie were already members of New Covenant. So both of them were there. New Covenant has always been a very innovative church. Pastor McQuarrie talked about all the things that Pastor Hester did back during his day, but I remember, Reverend McQuarrie came in with all these new ideas, and we were doing things that we hadn't done before, like having a food co-op that, members of the community could put in their order, and all the men went downtown and purchased the meat and the veggies, and the women came out and they distributed, and we were buying it at cost. And that's what it felt like. It felt like a village where you could come, and we were doing all these very innovative things, from his teaching to food co-ops to the different ministries. It's just been an amazing ride to watch the different eras of New Covenant.
Man, just to know that the church has always been as innovative and creative as it is, even now. Like, I brag about my church because of, I'm like, man, first of all, if y'all still have a church on Sundays, man, I can't even rock with y'all. You know what I'm saying? And I'm proud to say that, you know, that in the flock of a pastor that's just mindful of how important it is to get closer to the truth and not tradition all of the time, you know, and reclaiming that truth. And it's just great to know that you're still on that wave, Rev. You know what I'm saying? To know that you've been doing it for years, or, you know, since you started. That's powerful. That's a powerful consistency, man. And I love to hear that.
Raymond Elmo can tell you something about the food co-op, because he was one of the ones who used to go down with us 3 o'clock in the morning down there in water up with on 12th Street.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember the rides in the van and all of the stories that used to get swapped back and forth. And about, I distinctly remember that bales of hay hitting you in the chest when you were a young man, Doc. I'll always remember that. I tell people the stories about hay, and I don't know anything about hay because I never was a farmer. But on the co-op, though, that was something special, because we would actually go down very, very, very early in the morning, and we would go actually buy food at cost, and we'd fill up the back of the van, and it would be just enough room for us to barely squeeze in between the boxes and the bags and stuff. And we would have to come back home and like I say, divide it all up and carry it into the church for it to be distributed to those who either bought it or needed it.
What about Marcella Caraway? Before we could go buy anything, right? And it's 3 o'clock in the morning. We meet the church about 3, get down there about 3:30, 3:45. Before the big trucks came in around 5. Marcella, what's the first thing you have to have before we go down there, Ray? What's the first thing he had to have before we can go buy anything? What was they had to have?
Some of James Cole's black coffee that would just burn the hair right off your chest and head.
What about the polar sergeants, man? He had to have that before we could go buy anything. We got to wait until he get his polar sergeants, and he put these jalapeno peppers on top. And with that black coffee, that coffee, man, make if I'm bald headed, it'll make hair grow on your head. That's the first thing we had to do before we go buy anything.
Well, you were on Maxwell Street. You were on Maxwell Street and Southwest.
Oh,
yeah.
You see this thing, man, this polar sergeant loaded with jalapeno peppers. Marcella, this time of morning, we got to wait until you get the sergeant before we can go buy anything. It's every Friday. Every Friday.
Oh, so he was getting it from Maxwell, so they was probably open there early. Right. That's carried away, man. Ms. Evans, where did you join the church, and what was it like when you were there?
Well, Aaron was just asking me the year that I joined, and I know I got married in 1987, so I joined in 1986. Okay. And I remember one of the things that I loved about the church, and mind you, I grew up in Phoenix. Mm-hmm. And so my mom was always a member of, of New Covenant. I went with my father's home church because I was going with my grandmother. Then it was mandatory. Your parents didn't go. Somebody was going to take you to church. Mm-hmm. You know, so I remember when I came over to New Covenant, the thing that I loved the most was the Friday family night that we used to have. Okay. And it was just wonderful. The children would come in. I didn't have kids at that time, but they would come in and they would go and they would do the game nights, and then you would have the marriage ministry. They would meet. You have a rap session. We used to have a rap session with Rev, and we just be in a circle. He'd bring up a topic, and we would talk on it. And I really that was before I even joined. I started going, and then I didn't even realize at the time that there was a connection there with my dad and Pastor McCrary, because my father was an interior decorator, and he used to go over to New Covenant. He used to paint New Covenant all the time. So I would be over there, especially when I started driving, because I was trying to get his car while he was working. And so, I don't know if Red remember, but I used to talk to him as, as a teenager and things of that nature. But I really enjoyed that part with the family night.
I remember earlier I said that, you know, one of the things that I do, like a motif that I would love for us to revisit is, you know, the choirs. And I'd be remiss if I didn't really explain, like, not only was the choir for me something like my first stage, right? Like as I was, you know, introduced to performing, but the choir I remember was really what pulled me to Christ, right? It was like, it was the songs and the music and just the energy from the choir stand that I remember being like, this is what I do. You know what I'm saying? That's how I wanted to participate in worship. And I'll never forget Ms. Evans being over the angelic choir. I'll never forget Miss Jackie. I never forget, like,
job. Yes,
it was like every Sunday, and this is how I used to remember it. It's like earlier to Corey, you were there, because, you know, it was like a powerful concert, like the gifts, then the talent that would be, and I can't think of this brother's name, but I feel like I ended up seeing him somewhere like out in Chicago. But it was like every time he played a solo, he would play the organ. And it was like, he would just go crazy. And I would be like flabbergasted. And like, man, like if I can't do that, then I don't want to do it. It did every Easter. It was almost like, who gonna sing He's Alive? And it's like, when you knew Johnny was gonna get up there and say He's Alive, and Aaron, you can probably attest to this, right? Like being a little homie, looking up to these big homies that were doing it, you like, one day I'm gonna have to sing He's Alive. You know what I'm saying? It was just an understanding. It was just an understanding, like, one day that's gonna be me singing He's Alive. I used to watch Deep, you know what I'm saying? Everybody ought to know. It was like, one day I'm gonna have to be Deacon Roberson, and everybody gonna have to know because of me. It was, and that's really what I love. It was like, it was almost like a rite of passage. So, Ms. Evans, if you don't mind, just giving us a little history or about how you were introduced to the choir. Like, what was it? You know, like how did it start for you?
Oh, that's a good one. It's amazing that, you know, I love music, and Miss Walker, I don't know if you all remember Marion Walker. She was the minister of music at Second Baptist. And so didn't know I had a love for music at the time. She just said to me one time, I want you to come to the, you know, start coming to the director's meeting. And I was like, no, I don't. But that wasn't a time that you told adults, you know, yes or no, you would or would not do something. You just attended. And it was something that when I knew that she was at New Covenant, and so it was just an honor to be under her again. But New Covenant has had some outstanding musicians. Barney, and this was before I came, but I knew coming back, because during that era, you know, if New Covenant had a musical, everybody went over to New Covenant for the musical. Then New Covenant would come over to Second Baptist for the musical, and we would go to Bethlehem Temple and True Vine. That's what we did as young people. We just traveled and went to the different musicals. But when I came to New Covenant, my thing was, I'm not doing anything. I'm just gonna sit back. I'm just gonna relax. And lo and behold, I don't know why Rev did that, but one Sunday he just said, and at the time I was born, Faith born, I want you to start working with the angelic choir. You know, and I'm like, but it was one of the best things that could have ever happened to me, because it helped to lay that foundation for that music. So the things that I was taught, you know, I was able to bring and use and to mature the gift that God had given me. But for him to even ask me to do that, and I thought, okay, maybe 1-2 years, 3 years at the max, because, you know, after that, you know, somebody else got to have this. And lo and behold, if I didn't look up, and it was 12. So my, you know, I wasn't married at the time when I did the angelic choir. Then I got married, then I had kids, and I was still doing the angelic choir. You know, and it grew for me from the angelic choir, and then just to have the opportunity for, you know, a couple of years to work with the mass choir. It prepared me, you know, and it matured me and groomed me, you know, for that opportunity just to worship. But Miss Marion Walker, Helen Smith, Barney, all of those were, man, I do, Willie Barron, Wendy, as you said, Jackie, all of them, LaDonna, you know, to work with them in ministry was just awesome, you know, and you just learned and you grew from, you know, from one another. Cleo Joyner, oh my goodness.
And Tommy Day. I don't know if you remember.
Day.
Tommy Day and the Day family.
Yeah.
Oh, that's when we had that huge choir, man.
Yes.
The whole choir stand was full. We had to have seats on the side for folks.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's when we had the big choir.
Remember that
Man,
song?
oh man, oh man.
Catrice Day used to sing, Jesus said, you must be born again.
Yes. Oh man, oh man.
Song, and when she sang that, oh my goodness.
Yes, yes.
You know,
Mother Blue testifying all doing the preaching.
Yeah.
Wrap it up, Mother Blue. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
you know, it was great. And it was so much talent within that choir.
I would love to ask Sister Takora a question, because I know I've been watching you over there, just, you know, and I think you would enjoy this one. But my question to you is, when you joined the church, of your earliest memories, did Rev have hair? Like, did he have like something soft, like Lori Lightfoot going on, or was it like a buzz cut?
What's so funny is the throwback that they just showed, and it was a throwback like Miss Wills and all of them was in the choir, and Rev had that hair, so Zaria was looking at the throwback too, and she was like, "Who is that at the pulpit?" And I was like, "That's Rev." She was like, "Rev had all that hair?" I said, "Yes." I said, "It's hard to believe." I said, he used to get it cut then, and he get it cut now. He don't even have that much.
Rev still be getting a haircut. Rev ain't gonna take it all the way off.
Still get a haircut.
He had a little fro going on. Yes, he did.
Yes, he had the George Jefferson going on.
Yeah, there you go.
I also want you to talk about butter.
Oh man!
I want you to
talk about butter. There was a butter. I don't know if everybody know about butter, but there was a butter. I introduced my grandson to butter.
No, with butter, I had to spell out science project. With every letter was introduced.
Oh, you got hit every time you spelled science project?
Science project, I had to spell it out because I did not do my science project. I did everyone after that, you best believe it. And my truest memory with Rev and Miss McQuarrie is when I received my first F in college. That was my first F as far as I can remember. And I wanted to throw in the towel. I wanted to quit school. I came home that weekend. I was crying. I wanted to throw it in. But again, my mother steered me to Rev. We talked it out. You know, he told me, no, you're going to go back. You're going to take the class over. And then I talked to Miss McQuarrie, and she told me that the nursing guidance counselor was going to tell me, since I got that F, change my major. She told me, and when I went in there, that's exactly what she told me. And I cried. I talked to Miss McQuarrie. She was like, nope, you going to find some other way to get into nursing school. And I just thank Rev and Miss McQuarrie for that guidance and that memory, because I was just, you know, not only do they Rev give you that biblical guidance, but also that life guidance.
as we give the floor to you, Rev, if there's something that you want to say, right, about the you know, was there fear there a little bit, right? At first, as you start to learn these things and as you start to unpack it for yourself, when you knew that you had to give that to your congregation, you know, what kind of nerves might there have been in being able to help us make this transition?
Well, yes, there's always trepidation or the idea of fear in terms of not fear in terms of my life, fear in terms of people not understanding, and then not understanding you are not grabbing hold of what is yours, your heritage. You know, in sharing when I really was just convinced and was challenged by Father YAH. I was sharing with Pastor Caraway. I said, man, I don't know what God is doing. He said, well, that's your calling, you know, because I've shared my calling with him. And so he said, you know, that's go and gather all of his saints who have made sacrifice unto him. He said, you know, this is this time. And so, we talked about it, you know, because you got people who have grown up with a tradition all of their lives. And then you bring in something that is completely contrary, theologically, biblically, that, you know, it just, you know, is something that's, that I had to, you know, be firmly convicted in my heart and my spirit that now I am pursuing what the calling is. Go and gather together all of my saints who have made sacrifice unto me. Psalms 50 and verse 5 and 10, when I was my last year in college, maybe my last year, maybe anyhow, I had this, I was awakened and with this voice saying to me, get up and read Psalms 50 and verse 5 and 10. I'm trying to look around. I said, my roommate is asleep. Who is talking to me? And so when I look up, I see a puff of smoke go out the window, and it scared me to death. And I was too embarrassed to tell my roommate of what I had heard and seen. So I think I'm going crazy. And so I finally got enough nerve to tell him. He said, well, man, maybe you've been called to preach. I said, no, man, not me. No. But anyhow, long story short. So I didn't have a Bible. I got up and borrowed someone's Bible, and I read Psalms 50, verse 5 and 10. I had no idea what it means. 5 said, go and gather together all of my saints who have made sacrifice unto me, and all the cows on 1,000 hills are mine. So now moving to where we are now. How do I get there? Well, Miss Nancy Brown gave me this book a long time ago. It's called Black Biblical Heritage by John Johnson, Black Biblical Heritage. And so, you know, I had it, you know, I'm reading through it, you know, again, because I've attended an all-white seminary, you know, and, you know, university, Iowa. I was the only Black PhD in the whole college, my college, you know, and so, you know, so my mind was not on that, but something was nugging me. So I started reading this, and I was going to do a revival. And this was the epiphany. I was going to do a revival, and I was just waiting for me to go over to the church. And I was sitting in my office, just open my Bible and reading. And I started reading this passage of scripture, and I'm seeing this is Black history. This is talking about us. And I sat in my chair in my office, and I cried like a baby. And I made a promise to Father YAH that from this day forward, I am going to pursue and do the calling you asked me to do. I had to get myself together because I got to go preach, man. My eyes are red because I was weeping, man. I mean, I'm sobbing. I'm saying, how in the world could I not see this? I have a PhD. I've been to the seminary. I've taught at the seminary. I've taught at the university. Why couldn't I see this? And I shared with Caraway. He said, it wasn't time for you to see it. I said, you're right. If I had received this earlier, I wouldn't know how to unpackage it, how to deal with it adequately. And so he waited until I was old enough, age-wise, as well as in ministry. And then then that's when my thirst hit, and so I just started reading and reading and reading, going back into the scriptures, reading. I said, oh my, how in the world could we miss this? Why no professor? Why no professor at the seminary or somebody ever mentioned? And so I started reading and studying and reading, and then the books just started piling up. I'm just reading and reading all this stuff. I said, oh my. All of this knowledge, all of this history just been hidden away. Who would dare tell the story? All right, so when I started this epiphany, quite naturally, those fellowship that we had, they started pulling away. Well, hey, no big deal. They started pulling away, and so now you on the island almost by yourself, but I was determined because Father YAH has opened my eyes, opened my heart, and now he says, now you want to know, I'm going to help you to know. And so, man, I wasn't looking for things, stuff just like just coming, boom, 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 boom. I'm not even, if I turn, here's some more knowledge. I turn this way, here's something else. So you want to know, I'm going to show you. And he just started unloading and unloading. And I've been learning and sharing. So now I can't go back. So we have to move away from a Eurocentric Christian perspective, because that perspective is based upon white supremacy, putting forth an agenda that is contrary to our life, our longevity, and our survival. So we have to begin to see the scripture as they were written by people of color, written to a Black Jewish nation, and began to understand that. At the same time, not to become so offensive and so caught up into your own history that you fail to understand how to adequately communicate this message in a way that is not demeaning or confrontational, but at the same time, not backing away. Because I had a lot of resistance at church when I started teaching this reality, this truth, a lot of resistance. People be looking up in the ceiling when I'm sharing, doing the mission and sharing. So I started to just breaking down scriptures and showing you. Here's the books, here's the ancient material that goes with this. And then I would show videos. And so I was determined that I was not regressing. I was not going back. I was not retreating. I didn't care who would oppose. If people was offended, they leave, so be it. They just leave. And so I was determined. I was not going to retreat. I was not going to back off because you're rejecting, because you don't want to hear truth. You don't want to hear the reality. It's not because of disbelief. It's so much because they are being ingrained and been indoctrinated all their lives in church to think out of a Eurocentric framework and out of a whole Eurocentric theological context. And so as a result of that, there was a lot of initially resistance, but I was determined not to allow resistance to impede what Father YAH has placed in my heart and in my mind and my spirit to do, because I must answer to him. And so if he's unpacked it and he has revealed it, and now he said, go and gather my saints, that's what I'm doing.
When God transitioned to begin to tell us about who the Bible was really written for, that was a shock, because we were right there in the Bible, and when he explained all of those things and went through that, the knowledge that we received from that, and it gives you a feeling of belonging to something, and that's to the Most High.
But as we transition, I must admit that I have not a hard time accepting it, but a hard time understanding and growing. With the, you got everybody know that Christmas was my favorite time of the year. You know what I'm saying? But for the wrong reason. So you get that teaching and you get that conviction and you say, okay, next year, and then okay, next year, until I had my son, who ended up in the classes with Pastor McCrary, and whereas he was coming home, and to watch him sit down with his dad and they're going through, and he's ministering to his father. And then he began to minister, to me and to Ebony. And, even before, by the time Ebony got here in Leroy's, I had to laugh because the first time she came in, she was sitting with Aaron, and we still laugh about it. He said, Rev got up and said, Yahshua? He said, yes, you are what? Well, he keeps saying, yes, you are. Yes, you are what? Yes, what? What is Rev talking about?
No, man, y'all know when we get through with the service, we go through, everything for offering on the back of the bulletin and everything. And man, when them words change, Ebony being there the whole time, she got it memorized. So she stand up there the first time, and she gonna say, she looking all crazy like, whoa, hold on, did I miss some words?
But then when Aaron just, when you know better, you do better. You know what I'm saying? And so as that conviction and that growth, and we began to grow, and then he just, he came in and he was like, hey, we got to go with what the word says. It's not necessarily what Rev says. It's just he's teaching us what the word of the Lord, of God says. And so now we have to remove from ourselves from this thing. We're used to living this way, but I don't miss any of it. I promise you. But that's growth. And so I just thank Rev that, Aaron got under his wing, was ever able to learn and to grow, and then to minister to his own family, and to get us to a level of understanding and knowing what all of this is about. So, I'm honored. Thank you, Rev.
So I could say just about New Covenant, growing up in this church, it's like meant everything to me. Just being away, just so far away from home, and still like deeply rooted in the things I've learned, like during vacation Bible school, just church school on Saturdays with Miss Jackson, and just dancing at church. It's just it really shaped me into the person I am today. And I can just say this, that every time we come home, the first thing we want to do is go to church. So when we wasn't able to go to church when we got sent home back in March, it was just devastating. But we have a lot to go off of. So like just growing up in the church, my grandmother, Miss Mary Harris, was the first person to introduce us to this church. And she put us in dance right under Ebony, and just growing up with these women around us, like, of course, Ebony, Miss Evans, Kanisha, Markia, yeah, everybody was older than me and Kayla. We were the babies of the group. But like Brittany and Diamond and things like that. But I've learned so much about my relationship and how I want to grow and where I want to go with this relationship with YAH, because through these women that showed me how to minister.
I would love to hear from Tiana. Because every time I see you with Lloyd's kids, man, I'd be like, man, they about to. The next Buchanan go hurt her. The next Buchanan.
Well, I would just like to say, as far as like with the future of New Covenant, that we just continue to go strong the way we have been going over the past, especially over the past couple years. It's been life-changing for me. And I feel like with my kids, with them being so young now, at 7 and 9, like they are so much farther ahead of the game than I ever would have been at that age. And as far as just knowing who they are and who is our Father and what he does for us and what he means to us, to have them so young to know that. And, even like with my kids with Sabbath school on Saturdays, I sit and I kind of listen to them a little bit, and then I get back to my lesson. But just the way they can navigate through the Bible, they know the word, they have the understanding, and they love Rev. I mean, what Rev says, and for my kids to be able to tell my family who doesn't know what we know, who Yahshua is. Mm-hmm. My goodness, it's 7 and 9. Mm. So, that we just continue to go strong with this and just continue to educate our children. I feel that this is just preparing them so well for the world when they get out there as they get older, to know who they are, where they come from. you know, and it's just phenomenal. So I love where we are, the direction we're in, and I just you know, pray we just continue to go strong, and then, you know, just don't let anything set us back.
I cannot retreat. I will not go back. And so now I must pursue this journey to its very end.